They thought I was just an old woman, too fragile to fight back. My own daughter and her husband tried to take my home, strip me of my dignity, and lock me away. But what they didn't know was that my late husband had left behind a secret powerful enough to turn their greed into their downfall. This is the story of how betrayal met its match. Thanks to spare some time and watching my video. I hope you will love my story and will show your love in terms of liking this video and subscribe my channel to a part of my family. So without wasting much time, let's begin the story. The judge, buried in his papers, suddenly froze. His eyes lifted and locked on mine. The color drained from his face, and in a voice so quiet only a few could hear, he whispered, "It's her." The entire courtroom fell silent. Lawyers stopped mid-sentence, the clerk's fingers hovered over their keys, and even the bailiff shifted uncomfortably. My daughter's smug look faltered. Trent frowned, confused. They didn't know what those words meant, but I did. I had lived long enough to recognize when fate decided to show its hand. They thought I was nothing but an old widow, clinging to bricks and memories. They thought they had stripped me of dignity. But what they didn't realize was that I carried a story far older, far stronger than their grief. Every morning in Riverton began the same way. I'd rise at 6, fill the kettle, and reach for my chipped mug, the same one I'd held for over 20 years. As coffee filled the air, I checked on the African violets lined along my windowsill. Harold, my late husband, loved those flowers. Watering them kept him close. Even after death, my life wasn't grand. It was a rhythm of small, sacred habits stitched with memory. I never had riches or luxury, but I poured my whole soul into raising Lena. I scrubbed offices at midnight, stitched torn dresses for neighbors, and baked pies for church fundraisers just so my daughter could have a life better than mine to the world. I was just a quiet grandmother, but inside I carried decades of sacrifice. That Thursday evening, I wanted nothing more than to remind Lena of the warmth of home. I spent hours in the kitchen, stirring Harold's favorite chicken and dumplings, the same dish Lena used to beg for when she was little. I laid out my embroidered tablecloth, the one I had stitched by hand while Lena was a teenager, and set fresh flowers in the center. It wasn't just dinner, it was an offering. A reminder that this house, our house, still held love, memories, and roots too deep to be torn out. But when the door opened, everything shifted. Trent walked in first, and without so much as a greeting, sank into Harold's old armchair. He switched on the television like he already owned the place. His arrogance filled the room like smoke. Lena followed, standing tall in the green dress I had once bought her. The same daughter I had sacrificed everything for looked at me with eyes as cold as winter. "Mom," she said flatly. Her tone clipped, unfamiliar, like a stranger had taken her voice. "We need to talk." Her words cut through me sharper than any knife. She didn't sit. She didn't smile. She simply announced, as if reading a prepared script, that the house was too much for me, that I couldn't manage it anymore, that she and Trent needed it for their growing family. They had already found me a place, a perfect retirement community, she called it. I tried to speak, my voice trembling. "Lena, this is your father's home." He took his last breath here, holding my hand. Every wall in this house carries our story, but my daughter, the child I had worked myself ragged to raise, only said, "Memories are in the heart." "Mom, not on the walls." Those words crushed me. A few days later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Trent strolled in uninvited, his voice booming like he owned the place. Behind him walked a stranger in a gray suit, clipboard in hand, a real estate appraiser. "This is the property," Trent said casually, waving his hand as if presenting his latest prize. The man walked through my home like it was already for sale. He measured walls, tapped the pipes, scribbled notes with cold detachment. "The kitchen tiles are outdated," he muttered. "The plumbing is old. This place would need a full renovation. I stood in the corner, clutching the edge of my apron, my heart hammering. Those tiles he dismissed so easily weren't just tiles, they were Harold's work. I still remembered him on his knees, sweat dripping down his brow as he carefully laid each one, smiling at me and saying, "This kitchen will last us a lifetime, and now." All of it was being reduced to numbers on a checklist. Lena followed behind, nodding at the appraiser's words, never once looking at me. Each comment landed like a hammer against the walls of my heart. My home wasn't sacred to them, it was just profit. The following week, they returned again. This time, not with an appraiser, but with a lawyer. Trent sat down at my dining table like a king claiming his throne, while Lena stood silently behind him. Eyes downcast, the lawyer spread out papers, his tone polite but sharp. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "these are the transfer documents. Once you sign, the property will be in safe hands. Everything has been arranged for your comfort." I scanned the words, my chest tightening. Transfer of ownership, permanent, irrevocable. My hand shook. This wasn't about helping me. This was about taking everything. When I refused, Trent's mask slipped. His voice hardened, sharp as glass. "You're not in a condition to make decisions anymore, Nora. Lena is your heir. She's acting in your best interest." The lawyer leaned in, lowering his voice. "If you don't cooperate, we may have to consider proceedings for mental incapacity." The room spun. My daughter. My own flesh and blood. She wasn't here to protect me. She was preparing to strip me of everything I had left. I forced the words out, even as my voice trembled. "I'm not signing anything." That night, sleep abandoned me. I sat in Harold's armchair, staring into the shadows of our home, wondering if Trent was right. Maybe I was too old, too fragile, too useless to stand in their way. The thought cut deeper than any insult. My eyes drifted to the photographs on the wall. Lena in my arms as a baby, Harold beaming at her graduation, our family around the Christmas table, laughter frozen in time. Every frame whispered the same truth. I had lived my entire life for them. And now, I was nothing more than a burden. "Harold," I whispered into the silence, "I don't know how to fight this alone." The next afternoon, I wandered the house, searching for strength and memories. My steps led me to Harold's old desk. I pulled open drawers filled with yellowed bills and faded letters. My fingers brushed something different, a slim folder, bound with a tiny lock. My breath caught. I had never seen it before. Frantically, I searched until I found a small brass key tucked inside one of Harold's favorite books on investing. My hands trembled as I slid it into the lock. With a soft click, the folder opened. Inside was a stack of documents neatly marked with Harold's initials. Most were contracts I didn't understand, but one page stopped me cold. A will, signed and dated just 6 months before Harold passed. As I read, my reality shifted. Harold had been far more careful, far more deliberate than I ever realized. He hadn't just left me this house. He had built something in secret. For decades, he had quietly invested every spare dollar. He had bought properties when prices were low, purchased stocks, even a piece of land outside Riverton now worth a fortune. Asterisk, and then the shock that nearly made me drop the page. The building Lena and Trent lived in, the one they thought they were renting, it was ours. All those rent checks they'd been paying had been funneled into an account under Harold's name, now mine. For 2 years since his death, money had been flowing in untouched, waiting. I wasn't just a widow clinging to a house. Harold had left me an empire. At the bottom of the folder, an envelope waited, my name written in Harold's familiar script. My heart pounded as I unfolded the letter. His voice seemed to rise from the page. "My dearest Nora, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer by your side. Forgive me for keeping this secret, but I wanted it to be a gift. You gave everything to me and Lena. I wanted you to live without fear. I must also tell you, I never trusted Trent. There is an ambition in him that has no heart. That is why I arrange things this way. If Lena treats you with love, she will share in this legacy. If not, you hold the power to protect yourself. Use it wisely, not to hurt, but to teach. Tears streamed down my face. For the first time in years, the crushing weight lifted. By dawn, I had made my decision. The fear was gone. A calm strength settled in its place. The next morning, Lena and Trent arrived with boxes and movers, expecting to find me packed and defeated. Instead, they found me sitting calmly in Harold's armchair, sipping tea as though the storm outside my walls didn't exist. "Mom, what are you doing?" Lena snapped, glancing at the movers. "They're here to help you pack." I set my cup down slowly and met her eyes. My voice was steady. "I'm not leaving." Trent let out a short, mocking laugh. "Mrs. Whitaker, you don't have a choice." He stepped closer, arrogance radiating off him. "This house isn't yours anymore. Lena is your heir. She's acting in your best interest." I rose from my chair, calm but unyielding. "You're right, Trent. I don't have a choice." I paused, letting the silence tighten around us. "But it turns out, neither do you." I walked to Harold's desk, pulled out a folded deed, and placed it on the table. "Did you know," I asked softly, "that the apartment you've been living in never truly belonged to you?" Trent's smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" Lena frowned, confused. "But we pay rent every month?" "Yes," I said, my eyes never leaving hers. "To a management company. A company that transfers the money directly to me, because Harold and I own the building, and now it belongs to me." The silence was heavy. Even the movers froze, uncertain whether to stay or flee. Trent snatched the paper from Lena's hands, scanning it, his face draining of color. This has to be fake." "You're bluffing." I folded my arms. "Check the records yourself. You'll see." Anger exploded from him, his voice rising. "Even if this is true, you can't stop us. We'll take this to court. You'll lose everything." I shook my head slowly. "On the contrary, you have 30 days to find another place to live. After that, the law allows me to evict you." Lena gasped, her eyes filling with tears. "Mom, you can't mean that." I looked at her, my daughter, the child I had sacrificed everything for, and my heart ached. Family doesn't scheme to steal what isn't theirs. Trent, desperate now, turned to her. "Tell her, Lena. Tell her why she can't do this." Her lips trembled. Then she whispered, "Mom, I'm pregnant." The words cut through me. For a moment, my knees weakened. I would be a grandmother. And yet, I was hearing this not with joy, but as a weapon used against me. My resolve wavered for just a breath, until Harold's words echoed in my mind. "Use it not to hurt, but to teach." I straightened my shoulders. "Congratulations, Lena, but a baby doesn't erase betrayal. It doesn't erase what you've done." Her tears spilled over. She turned to Trent, whispering, "Maybe we should just apologize. Maybe we should make this right." But Trent's face hardened, his voice venomous. "I will never bow to her. She's manipulating you. She's manipulating all of us." I stood silently, letting the poison of his words fill the air. For the first time, Lena looked at him as if she truly saw him, not as her husband, but as the man who had twisted her against her own mother. And in that silence, something inside her shifted. 2 weeks later, Trent came back, not with movers this time, but with fury. The building manager called up, his voice trembling. "Mrs. Whitaker, he's demanding to be let in. He says his wife is being held against her will." I walked down to the lobby. Trent stood there, reeking of alcohol, his eyes bloodshot, rage dripping from every word. He jabbed a finger at me. "Give me back my wife, or I'll have you arrested for kidnapping." I didn't flinch. Lena is exactly where she wants to be. And you, Trent, are standing on my property. That means you'll leave, now. He laughed bitterly. "This isn't your building." I dialed my attorney on speaker. "Camille, could you confirm who owns this building?" Her voice was crisp, professional. "Of course, Nora, you are the sole legal owner." The manager's eyes widened. Trent's mouth stopped shut. For the first time, he had no words, but his silence didn't last. Within days, a lawsuit was filed. Trent accused me of manipulating Lena, alienating her from him, even scheming to destroy their marriage. He threatened to fight for custody of the baby too. It was absurd. But I knew I had to be ready. Camille and I worked tirelessly. She gathered texts where Trent insulted Lena, voicemails where he threatened to abandon her unless she forced me out, sworn statements from neighbors who had heard her shouting through the walls. Piece by piece, his cruelty was laid bare. The morning of the trial arrived under heavy clouds. Trent strutted in with an expensive lawyer by his side, arrogance dripping from every step. He glanced at me with contempt, but this time I felt no fear. I had truth on my side. His liar painted me as a bitter old woman, manipulative, clinging, using money to tear apart a marriage. The words stung, but I sat still, waiting. Then Camille rose, her calm voice slicing through the lies. One by one, she laid out the evidence text full of venom, recordings of threats, and witnesses ready to testify. Each piece struck like a hammer. Trent's smirk began to crumble, and then the twist no one saw coming. The judge leaned back, studying me closely. He removed his glasses. His voice softened. "Mrs. Whitaker, Nora Whitaker, do you remember me? 30 years ago, family court. Judge Harlan's office. You stayed late to help a nervous intern finish his work. Recognition hit me. Beneath the stern face, I saw him. Marcus Ellery, the timid young man I had once encouraged long ago. Marcus." My voice cracked. "Of course I remember." The courtroom froze. Trent's lawyer leapt up, stammering, "Your Honor, this is a conflict of interest." But Judge Ellery's voice was steady as steel. "There is no conflict. There is only justice. And the evidence is clear. Mr. Maddox has been the manipulator all along." His gavel struck. The sound echoed like thunder. Trent's claims were denied. Every last one. Instead, the court declared him guilty of intimidation, coercion, and emotional abuse. He was barred from approaching Lena or me, stripped of parental rights until further review, and ordered to pay damages. Trent's face turned pale. His bravado shattered. Beside me, Lena broke down, tears streaming, relief pouring from her like rain after a long drought. I placed my hand gently over hers, not as a victory, but as a reminder. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of rebuilding what had been broken. Outside on the courthouse steps, she clung to me. "Mom," she whispered through her tears. "We're free, free." The word tasted both sweet and fragile. Freedom didn't erase the scars, but it was a start. Astra's freedom did not erase the wounds. When Lena moved back into the house, the air between us was fragile, heavy with unspoken questions. I set boundaries immediately. "If you stay here, it won't be as a guest," I told her. "You'll contribute. You'll be responsible. You'll earn back my trust." She nodded quietly, eyes lowered. At first, we only spoke about necessities, the groceries, the weather, her morning sickness. Yet slowly, I began to notice small shifts. She washed her dishes without being asked. She kept her old room tidy. One afternoon, I found her folding laundry in the living room, her hands trembling slightly as she looked up. "I want you to see I can take care of things," she whispered. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. As months passed, Harold's letter echoed in my heart. Use it not to hurt, but to teach. I realized his gift, the investments, the properties, was bigger than our family. Too many women, just like me, had been silenced, discarded, stripped of dignity by the very people they loved. With Camille's guidance, I created the Second Porch Foundation, a refuge for older women abandoned or betrayed by family. We named it Second Porch because every woman deserves another place to sit, to breathe, to belong. When her first porch has been taken away, within a year we sheltered 15 women. Their stories broke me open. Daughters who sold their mothers' homes behind their backs. Husbands who discarded their wives once they grew frail. Siblings who clawed for inheritance with lies. Letters poured in thank you notes filled with trembling handwriting. One woman wrote, "You gave me back my name." I am not just a burden anymore. Harold's secret had become a lifeline, not just for me, but for others. 5 years later, the garden in Riverton was alive with color. My granddaughter Isla ran barefoot through the grass, chasing butterflies, laughter spilling like sunlight. Lena stood at the porch, dusted in flour, preparing Sunday lunch. Her laughter had returned the same laugh I remembered from her childhood. That afternoon, an envelope arrived, an invitation to the dedication of our third Second Porch home. Dozens more women would soon find safety within its walls. Later that week, Judge Ellery visited with his wife. He smiled warmly, saying, "Nora, your work has inspired us all. The Retired Judges Association wants to honor you." As Isla climbed into my lap, placing a yellow flower in my hands, I realized how far we had come. Pain had been turned into purpose. Betrayal had been reshaped into legacy. Looking back, I see now true strength wasn't in shouting or fighting louder. It was in standing still, holding truth in my hands, and refusing to be erased. Harold's words had guided me. Use power not to hurt, but to teach. And that's what I did. Lena learned that respect cannot be forced, it must be chosen. And I learned that dignity is not given. It is claimed, protected, and passed down. If my story reminds you of your own, remember this: you are not powerless. Even in the darkest moments, there is always a way to reclaim your voice, your place, your worth. Sometimes life circles back with unexpected kindness, like the judge who remembered me after decades. Sometimes victory is not revenge, but simply refusing to be pushed aside. So if you're hearing my story, share it. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from, because dignity never expires.